this secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation. And it says here that this anonymous letter landed in my inbox a few minutes ago. Hello. For more than 20 years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. I've struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making this story public, as I was reluctant to implicate individuals who were present that day. So I've simply decided to leave out the names and the details that may risk my personal well-being and that of those who were, like me, dragged into something they weren't ready for. Between the late 1980s and early 90s, I was what you would call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came to Europe in the early 1980s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was difficult back then, since technology and media weren't accessible to people like they are today. The industry had more control over the public and had means to influence them any way it wanted. This may explain why in early 1991 I was invited to a closed-door meeting with a small group of music business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Little did I know that we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices I've ever seen. The meeting was held in a private residence in the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember about 25 to 30 people being there, most of them familiar faces. Speaking to those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap music and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private gathering to discuss its future. Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they did not seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign a confidentiality agreement, preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued and in some cases disturbed many of us. The agreement was only one page long, but very clear on the matter and consequences, which stated violating the terms would result in job termination. We asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but couldn't find anyone who had answers for us. Few people refused to sign and walked out. No one stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me. A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected the agreements from us. Quickly after the meeting began, one of my industry colleagues, who will remain nameless like everyone else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to the man who only introduced himself by first name and gave no further details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but this was never confirmed. He briefly praised us for the success we had achieved in our industry and congratulated us for being selected as part of the group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable with the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry that would become even more rewarding with our active involvement. He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. I remember many of us in the group immediately looked at each other in confusion. At the time, I did not know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with us. We were told that the prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more money the government would pay these prisons. It was made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they are publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple people asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting took the floor again and answered our questions. He told us that since our employers had become silent investors in this prison business, it was now their interest to make sure these prisons remained filled. Our job was to help make this happen by marketing music which promotes criminal behavior, rap music being of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies, and as employees, we'd be able to buy personal stocks in these prisons. Immediate silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure that I wasn't dreaming and saw half the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this an effing joke?" At this point, things became chaotic. Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man who shouted and attempted to remove him from the house. A few of us, myself included, tried to intervene. One of them pulled a gun and we all backed off. This separated us from the crowd and all four of us were escorted outside. My industry colleague, who had opened the meeting earlier, hurried out to meet us and reminded us that we had signed an agreement and would suffer the consequences about speaking publicly with those, or even with those who attended the meeting. I asked him why I was involved with something so corrupt, and he said it was bigger than the music business and nothing we'd want to challenge without risking consequences. We all protested as he walked back into the house. I remember word for word the last thing he said, "It's out of my hands now. Remember, you signed the agreement." He then closed the door behind him. The men rushed us to our cars and actually watched until we drove off. A million things were going through my mind as I drove away, and I eventually decided to pull over and park on the side of the street in order to collect my thoughts. I replayed everything in my mind repeatedly, and it seemed very surreal to me. I was angry at myself for not having taken a more active role in questioning what had been presented to us. I'd like to believe the shock of it all is what suspended my better nature. After what seemed like an eternity, I was able to calm myself enough to make it home. I didn't talk to call anyone that night. The next day, back at the office, I was visibly out of it, but blamed it on being under the weather. No one else in my department had been invited to the meeting. I felt a sense of guilt for not being able to share what I had witnessed. I thought about contacting the three others who were kicked out of the house, but I didn't remember their names and thought tracking them down would probably bring unwanted attention. I considered speaking out publicly at the risk of losing my job, but I realized I'd probably be jeopardizing more than my job, and I wasn't willing to risk anything happening to my family. I thought about those men with the guns and wondered who were they. I had been told they were bigger, this was bigger than the music business, and all I could do was let my imagination run free. There were no answers and no one I could talk to. I tried to do a little bit of research on private prisons, but didn't uncover anything about the music business's involvement. However, the information I did find confirmed how dangerous this prison business really is. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. Eventually, it was as if the meeting had never taken place. It all seemed surreal. I became more reclusive and stopped going to any industry events unless professionally obligated to. On 2 occasions, I found myself attending the same function as my former colleague. Both times, our eyes met, but nothing more was exchanged. As the months passed on, rap music definitely changed direction. I was never a fan of it, but I could tell the difference. Rap acts that talked about politics or harmless fun were quickly fading away as gangster rap started dominating the airwaves. Only a few months had passed since the meeting, but I suspected that the ideas presented that day had been successfully implemented. It was as if the order had been given to all major executives. The music was climbing the charts and most companies were more than happy to capitalize on it. Each one was churning out their very own gangster rap acts on an assembly line. Everyone bought into it, consumers included. Violence and drug use became a central theme of most rap music. I spoke to my fellow peers in the industry to get their opinion on the new trend and was told repeatedly that it was about supply and demand. Sadly, many of them expressed that the music reinforced their prejudices of minorities. I officially quit the music business in 1993, but my heart had already left months earlier. I broke ties with the majority of my peers and removed myself from this thing I once loved. I took some time off, returned to Europe for a few years, settled out of state, and lived a quiet life away from the world of entertainment. As the years passed, I managed to keep my secret, fearful of sharing it with the wrong person, but also a little ashamed of not having had the balls to blow the whistle. But as rap got worse, my guilt grew. Fortunately, in the late 1990s, having the internet as a resource which wasn't at my disposal in the early days made it easier for me to investigate what is now labeled the prison industrial complex. Now that I have a greater understanding of how the private prisons operate, things make much more sense than they ever have. I see how the criminalization of rap music plays a big part in promoting racial stereotypes and misguided so many impressionable young minds into adopting these glorified criminal behaviors which often lead to incarceration. 20 years of guilt is a heavy load, but the least I can do now is share my story, hoping that fans of rap music realize that they have been used for the past 2 decades. Although I plan on remaining anonymous for obvious reasons, my goal is to get this information out to as many people as possible. Please help me spread my word. Hopefully others who attended the meeting back in 1991 will be inspired by this to tell their own stories. Most importantly, if only one life is touched by my story, I pray it makes the weight of my guilt more tolerable. Thank you.
Old white men is running this rap shit. Corporate force is running this rap shit. Tall Israeli is running this rap shit. We poke out our asses for a chance to cash in. Cocaine is running this rap shit. Joe Yak and E-Pills is running this rap shit. This rap shit. Quasi-homosexuals is running this rap shit. What yo? We're running the world.
Who's this?
Hold up. This is the Drink Champs, the #1 podcast in the business. And right now we're talking to, hands down, the most important man, in my opinion, in the whole music game. He's a mogul. He's been doing this. He personally signed me and taught me how to be a man with money. Right now, we got Leo Combs on the line. Let's make some noise! Yo, Leo, I gotta big you up off top, man.
Well, I want to address the comment you made about mogul. I don't consider myself a mogul. Myself a servant. I prefer if you could replace mogul with humble servant.
My beef was with Lior because I think he's a fake CEO and I think he's fronting on my culture, but he can't front on anybody else. And I'm calling him out publicly and I want him to stop trying to rape my culture, go make some money with some other people. They have people that their job is to create beef so that they can monetize it, pause, but they don't let their culture feel it, but they make money from it and they can't make any money or get any respect in their culture. That's why they're in our culture. It is what it is. It's a perfect example of what they always do to us. They always try to, offer some paper bag of money or whatever it is, whatever selfish agenda, which is the test, and then have us divide so they can benefit and take the fight off of them and put the focus on them. Never had a beef with Jay, always with Lior and his whole crew. He's the one that ruined Rockefeller. I think it's fair to continuously make money off our culture, not make money off your own culture, not use any of your money to help our culture.
From it's where you at, and if you can't freak a leak, better bring your hat, snickle. East Coast, West Coast, down south, represent your coast. Yeah, we run it, yeah, we run it, y'all don't want it, 'cause my...
Get out of here, man. We only doing this shit to get out. It's crazy, man. Just to go to the beach, we gotta have guns with us, man. Like, this shit ain't normal, man. I'm forced to do this shit everywhere I fucking go, man. Like, this shit don't end. You know what I'm saying? This is a never-ending fucking cycle, man. Ain't no way out of this shit. You know what I'm saying? This shit make you paranoid, shit. It fuck you up, man. And that's why we do so many fucking drugs, because we just trying to cope with this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
take some pain away.
We human, man. Like, we just fucking human.
Anti-Semites. They don't care about Jews. They may have some assumptions about Jews. They may have some prejudice about Jews, like the Jews run everything. Well, we do. The Jews run all the banks. Well, we do. The Jews run the media. Well, we do. You know, I mean, they're right about all that stuff. Now, what you do with that is
In May, the Washington Times sent journalist David Mills to interview Professor Griff. A number of topics were discussed, but when the article was published, all the attention focused on one sentence. Griff reportedly told Mills, "Jews are responsible for the majority of wickedness that goes on across the globe." With the media scrutinizing their every move, it was a PR disaster. The resulting fallout threatened to end Public Enemy's career. It wasn't the first time Griff had brought up contentious issues in the press. The band often discussed ideas about how to regain a consciousness for African Americans. And this often spilled over into the black community's relationship with other ethnic groups. But this quote was indefensible. Did he really say those words, or were they taken out of context?
The way it was kind of put out there was definitely not my sentiment. Never had this hatred for Jewish people. Never had this hatred for white people like they say. I just finished reading The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, which was given to me by somebody in Public Enemy. This conversation was going on all the time about the control and who owns these companies and why all this group of people always doing this and controlling that and having this kind of influence. And that talk went on all the time, every day. And that bit of information that I put in that particular interview with David Mills was given to me by somebody in the group. But why am I taking the heat for it?
Whether Griff's words were reported correctly or not, the resulting media storm required swift action from the band's leader, Chuck D.
I remember being around at that time, and how tough that decision was for Chuck. It was difficult. I mean, think about it. They were the biggest rap group and one of the biggest pop groups in the world at that time, and you're told you got to get rid of one of your best friends out of the band because of his anti-Semitism. That's a lot of weight.
It was a total mess. It was a mess with me not just getting into it and handling it after it was said and done. And I just let it go. I said, you know what? Boys will be boys, and let's, men will be men. Let's just, it'll wash away. Did not wash away.
Def Jam's publicist Bill Adler refused to work with the group, and criticism from the world's media continued to build. Public Enemy's mission to change the consciousness of a generation was about to be wrecked by one interview. Chuck had to act to save his group. He released a statement, apologized, and sacked Griff.
Did I get thrown under the bus by organizations, by people in the group? Yeah, I did. Did it have to happen that way? No.
"25 years ago, as Do the Right Thing came out, in July 1989, we was also accused of being anti-Semitic based on a article that just went and hit a bad road in left field, and it was in this city, New York, and it was a motherfucker for real. I think the arguments were based on, well, let me tell you, the whole thing really happened, and it started out by the audacity of black men talking about the conflict, which is relevant to this moment.
The Palestinian
Israel and Palestine.
Right.
We were having detailed discussion on how the one-sidedness of Palestine and Israel was taking place, and it was almost like,
who the fuck are you talking about?
Black dudes talking about what the, But they had to deal with that, and they was getting these intellectual discourses coming back at. We ain't no fucking kids. We ain't stupid. We ain't naive. This shit's going on, and we need to address this. So Griff started to do an interview with David Mills, a black guy, and they're talking about, he brings up the issue of what's going on based on the Israel-Palestine thing, and they start talking about these areas of conflict, but also what had happened in the music business and how black people are still kind of ass down, and how also other people and also Jewish people happen to be running the music business. And what's up with the equitable shake here? And the emergence of even hip-hop. Where's the equality here? Well, David Mills they got into some good discussion that took a wrong path, especially when David Mills' girlfriend, who was white and Jewish, came into the room, and she started and it just went into her.
How the fuck is that an interview when she's not even, that's crazy.
Because that was his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then so when I came back to the hotel, I saw Griff come out of the elevator I got into it with this dude. I don't know if you can be having. I said, man, I'm tired. You go to bed. It wasn't until Spike Lee started getting some pressure. Spike Lee said, yo, man, they're gonna pull this movie, or they could have been calling this bluff. All this stuff about Public Enemy.
Talking about Do the Right Thing.
You Do the Right Thing, which was out in July 1989 to this day. It's like, yo, man, I'm getting a lot of pressure from these people at Universal about Public Enemy. And number one, Public Enemy is the theme of Do the Right Thing.
So Rick Rubin, I say him, I Dance Interior. He was a member of the Beastie Boys. He was a DJ Double R. I met him at Dance Interior because Jazzy J brought him to me. Jazzy J was on the record, It's Yours, Tila Rock. It was the best record on the radio. We talked in Dance Interior, and he played me his drum machine. He had so many beats. We started a record label. Rick owned and created the label Def Jam, that was his. Rick owned and created the label Def Jam, that was his.
Anybody killer, for anybody skriller, anybody out there know anybody realer, any motherfucker make
you may have to rewrite the third verse after this because you just took it, the whole song just went like this.
Rick ain't normal, I don't give a fuck. I know all producers have their idiosyncrasies, meaning, you know, quirks and weird shit. But he's just strange by strange standards. While we was downstairs doing hardcore rap records and shit, upstairs he had a bunch of people having koala leaves and doing some type of Tibetan freedom concert planning. And when was the last time you seen a bison in a nigga's studio?
Next to the Johnny Cash reels.
Over 20 years into his career, dude ain't changed, he got his own vibe. I mean, it's Rick. You gotta love him for that. All these records I used to listen to, these guys are the creators of it, the architects of what we do right now. I'm just fortunate, man. You want to take this? Yeah, you ready? Yeah.
Secret organization like the CIA is going to have secrets, but this sounded too bizarre to be true. Yet there it was, in print, in a respected newspaper. The accusation that the crack epidemic, which ravaged this country's cities, was spread with help from a secret army linked to the CIA.
Men who were working for the CIA's army were responsible for bringing all that cocaine into Los Angeles that sparked the crack epidemic.
Crack use spread like wildfire in the early 1980s. And in Los Angeles, a drug dealer known as Freeway Ricky Ross was in the middle of it. Prosecutors called Ross the Walmart of crack. He made millions in the early 80s dealing to Los Angeles street gangs. Police say he was among the first to take expensive cocaine powder and cook it into low-cost, highly addictive crack, then distribute it through the gangs. Webb says Freeway Ricky helped trigger an epidemic of human misery.
It's destroyed our community. All the black men are in prison, most of us.
Rick Ross is now serving a life sentence for cocaine distribution.
The women are still strung on the drugs, kids without fathers, without mothers.
And honestly, how much responsibility do you have for that?
A lot. A lot of it was my fault. I played the game.
The ratio of gangbangers to civilians was minuscule in the early 70s and early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, okay? Right after NWA, now I've been in the club business all this time, and I stopped making records went back to my second career, which was nightclub owner. What happened was NWA and rap, or gangster rap, made gangster lifestyle cool. So the ratio started to change. Everybody was a gangbanger. It used to be 5% gangbanger. Everybody became a gangbanger. So now you got 95% gangsters, or 90% gangsters, and 10% civilians. And when that happened, everything went crazy, because now theaters, clubs, parking lots, the park, everything is a war zone.
I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the First Amendment. And there is nothing that Ruthless or any other company like us does that we shouldn't be doing.
Ruthless Records was one of the first labels devoted to gangster rap and was the home of NWA, whose success was made possible by the label's independence.
When I heard Boys in the Hood, I just felt it was the most important music that I had heard in many, many years, since the beginning of rock and roll.
Jerry Heller had spent his career representing pop groups like Styx and Journey, but he was fascinated by NWA's foul-mouthed street sensibility. Convinced he had found a diamond in the rough, Heller says he left his other clients and helped Eazy-E start up a label they called Ruthless Records.
Nobody that I took the records to for the first 9 or 10 months ever thought that this would get any airplay.
Ultimately, Heller persuaded Priority Records to distribute NWA's first LP, Straight Outta Compton.
And was Jerry Heller involved at that point also?
Yes. He was,
Okay,
but what a lot of people don't know is, like, we came in a transition point of Ruthless Records, because Eazy-E had fired Jerry Heller, you know, and he started bringing all new people in, you know, and this is right before he got sick and passed away. He had fired Jerry Heller, and he brought all new people in to run his company, because I guess he found out it was some underhanded, shady business going on up under his nose that he didn't know about. We were even there, the same secretary that had Eazy call us back. We went to the office one day to pick up some money, and, you know, she was like, y'all wait right here, because Jerry is not so happy in the office right now. You know, and she was like, y'all just wait right here, because you know Eazy just fired him.
Right.
And we was like, damn. So yeah, it was going down. It was
Allegedly died of AIDS.
Well, no, he did. I think
he
that's
died of AIDS.
Yeah, it's confirmed.
Allegedly.
You think it was something else?
This might be alleged.
Yeah.
The way he picked the shit up, but I ain't getting into that right now, Jay.
Oh.
I got my own theories, you know what I mean?
Me too.
But
What? I've never heard these theories before. I thought it was just
I mean, it was crazy though, because we was hearing like
it happened kind of fast. Didn't it?
I was kind of thinking, like, who the fuck doctors did he go to? I think it was Jerry Heller's doctors that he went to, and he had just got fired. So I'm like, I don't know, but this don't even look, you know.
Conspiracy.
You know
And
what
then
I mean?
it's like you know, like you could, you know, we all seen people with full blown AIDS, and when they're about to die, you know, they look like they have it and they're about to die. Now you can have HIV and you can still look healthy, you know what I'm saying? But
and you don't even know you have it.
right, dude had full blown AIDS, and he looked like he regular. He was like still had his weight, still cocky, still looking like a regular dude, and it just came about all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, he was wrestling with Big Wish, you know what I'm saying? Like, going at it with Big Wish. So the dude was strong, cocky, man, really built like a little tank, you know what I mean? So you know, it's just theories, you know.
Did you read Jerry Heller's
finger.
biography that he wrote, or autobiography?
Wish we were there. Wish we were there, breaking all the rules. When niggas try to play fair. Ain't nothing fair in this game of life. You gotta get yours before you lose your life. The game is designed for them to win. You think I'm lying? Visit the pen. They already got a number reserved for your ass. Don't be a fool and join their class. They want you to enroll in their institution so they can pimp you with their new form of prostitution. Wake up, my niggas, and hear me clear. Don't be a slave to this game called fear. You got a mind, you gotta use it. Because if you don't, they will abuse it. Don't be a victim to their game. Learn the rules, my niggas, and do the same. There's a lot more money on that other side. And my niggas, you don't have to run and you don't have to hide.
I believe that what they've done is they've taken hip-hop and they've made it glorious to be a drug dealer. You know, when I sold drugs, I hid. I didn't want anybody to know I sold drugs. But now they got these guys who've never sold drugs, technically. You know, one guy was a correctional officer who goes by the name of Rick Ross now. He took my whole identity, and the court said that he could do it. That he could prance around the country and say that he's me and take my whole life and use it. And there was nothing I could do about it. I can't stop him. Now, they take these guys, and these guys say, well, I got to the position that I'm in right now today by selling drugs. So the message that it tells our kids is that if you go out, you sell drugs, then you can become a great rock star like myself and never go to prison. And I think that that's a false message to be given people who feel hopeless. The way they're doing it now, they're saying it's just art form. It's just a form of art. And I believe that it's sucking in our kids and get your lights cut off at 7 o'clock at night. Told when to get up in the morning, when to go to bed, and how to live your life.
It makes me sick.
And they're going to give you a job. Oh, you can't get a job on the street? Oh, well, they got a job for you in prison. It's called Unicorp. And you're going to make money, prison money, 25 cents an hour. And the job that you're going to be doing, skillful job. Because people on the street, well, they get $35 an hour to do that same job. But we're only going to give you 25 cents. But that's all you need. Because we're going to feed you, house you, we wash your clothes for you. You have nothing to worry about in here. Oh, they got what they call now, I just spoke at a conference in San Francisco. They call it from Head Start to the prison pipeline. So they say they can tell right now. They got people that say they can tell right now a kid that's in kindergarten if he's going to prison. You care about others. Because when you don't care about other people, then I believe that you're the worst. And a lot of people that's in power right now, they don't care about anything but your dollars. Well, I tried to reach out to everybody in hip-hop about us coming together and changing this culture and so forth. Nobody would touch me. Did have a meeting with Dr. Dre and brought up the subject, and I was cut off.
It glorifies violence. It's creating drugs, the culture of drugs, the culture of guns and rape.
Tucker uncovered a trail which led from Death Row, the biggest name in gangster rap, to one of the largest corporations in America, Time Warner. Time Warner held a 50% share in a company called Interscope Records, and Interscope were the financial backers and distributors of death row.
We decided that until the industry hurt us, we'd buy stock and go to the stockholders meeting. And so since Time Warner was the one that was the parent body that was selling this music, we approached their board meeting, and many of their board members were shocked. They didn't even know that they were engaged in gangster rap till I told them about it. Never let anybody denigrate you with these stereotypical images that you fought for years to get rid of. And now you're going to have children come back and use the term nigger, use the name bitch, call us that when we are super women. What we had to do to raise those children and what we've had to go through in our struggle.
You know, and then, of course, the 90s came in, and there was too much consciousness going on in hip-hop at that time for the powers that be. So here comes gangster rap. All right, take off the medallions, you know what I mean? Stop all that peace and unity, and let's do some hoes and cocaine and gangbang. At a time, if you were a conscious rapper, you couldn't even get a record deal anymore because hip-hop wasn't going that way no more. And that's directly from that gangster rap era, that gangster rap mentality, and the people who were in charge of hip-hop at that time. They totally deaded the cultural side of hip-hop. I mean, everything that, I mean, De La Soul, done. Tribe Called Quest, done. I mean, all that, done. I mean, yeah, it's still stuck around, it permeated, but they changed the whole landscape of the entire music. NWA, I thought they were great for what they were doing, but I thought they was a definite detriment to our people, the message they were giving out. You know what I mean? The music was groundbreaking and extraordinary, amazing. You know what I mean? But I wasn't. And I was out there at the time. I know them, I'm familiar with them. We had a club out in LA, Zulu Nation had a club, West Coast, Eazy-E's to come in, Ice Cube, all them cats used to be around. And then we all cool, it's all peace and love. But I'm saying, it's not even the artists so much, it's the music industry itself that kind of drove that ship. And they just recruited people to do what they needed to do. It was a different conversation than I'ma shoot you in your face. It was a different conversation than I got 5 bad kilos of this and that and this and that, and any nigga, I'm shooting your kneecaps off, I'm shooting your daughter in the calf muscle and shit like that. It wasn't that kind of conversation. Right. It was like, hey, I'm good too, I'm strapped too. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got yours, I got mine too. Ain't nobody running over nobody here. That was his conversation, but later on it became, yo, I'm gonna shoot this nigga and kill police and all that. It wasn't that extreme.
So that bothered you?
Okay, yeah, that bothered me, definitely. I knew it wasn't good for hip hop. You know what I mean? It might be good for rap music. You know, crack was out back then, and they were trying to sell more crack. So they used the music industry to help do that too, and to permeate that throughout our society and our culture.